Okay, bear with me a moment, I'm just setting up the live stream. Okay, so this evening we are going to be flying from Essendon Hills in Melbourne over the snowy mountains to Mount Hogan, and then we're heading northeast over the, now how do you pronounce this, Kosciuszko National Park, is that correct? To Canberra, and then carrying on northeast all the way to Sydney, and we're going to land at Bankstown. And more importantly, we're going to be looking at the OrbX sceneries for each of these airports along the way. So I've just had a bit of a splurge in the OrbX shop, so it should be good fun. We may change the weather because it's pretty abysmal at the moment. Should we actually, let's load this up into Navigraph and see what the weather's looking like on the wider plot. So unload that flight plan, go and grab this one, so copy it to the clipboard, make a new flight plan in Navigraph, paste it in and get rid of that. So there's our basic plot, and if we put this into VFR mode and then we select the weather, we can see there's the cloud cover plot, so it's going to be fairly cloudy. We want the radar, don't we, to show rain. Have we got much rain along the way? Bizarrely not. Oh, I just wasn't low enough down to see it. So there's bits of rain sprinkled along the way, but actually once we get away from Melbourne we'll be okay. So I've been looking at this in the news actually recently. Melbourne's being pelted at the moment, isn't it? Okay. Let's go and get the airplane up and running, shall we? So we're going to put some fuel in because we're going to need a lot of fuel. We're going to get rid of our passenger and fill it up. Might as well go for 100% because it's about a 400-mile trip. So if we click over there, we can get rid of the yoke out of the way just while we get the airplane up and running. Let's go. Actually, before we do that, let's just make sure that everything's working. So we have control movements, we have yoke, we have mixture. That's all looking good. We can leave the mixture on rich for the moment. Throttle's looking good. Okay, so can I remember how to start this thing up? So battery on, alternator on, beacon light on. Oh, actually, before we do any of this, let's go and I'm going to run this flight today through VA Base ACARS. So this is the ACARS client for Virtual Flight Online, which is the virtual airline. So it will record the flight for us. So we're going to go from YMEN to YSBK is the overall route. YMEN to YSBK. We're not going to have an alternate flight number, we'll just make one up. Passengers, none. Altitude, we'll probably be flying at 2,500 feet most of the way. Cargo, 0. Route is going to be YMEN. Actually, I've still got it in the clipboard, haven't I? There we go. And we can start the flight. So this is what's called a free flight as far as virtual flight is concerned. If you fill it into here, if you dispatch it from a tour or a scheduled flight in the airline, then it would come into here. Just so you can see what I'm on about, if I go to va.virtualflight.online and we go to the crew center, and log in. So obviously you can see a flight I did there shown on the map, but I could go in here and pick events or do charters. So I could do a charter flight, for example, which I'm not going to do today, but you can see how it could be done. But anyway, we're going to close out of there. So Virtual Flight Online keeps track of the flights you've done over time. So we'll say start flight. Have you loaded the required fuel? Yes, we have. You must start your flight at the correct airport in the flight plan, YMEN. Oh, that's interesting. That means I haven't got, oh, what's it called? The integration layer running for, now is it listed in, yeah, FSUIPC. I need to have this running in the background. So we can just leave it running and then start flight now. Please note, yep, that's all fine. So it's locked out, so I can just minimize that now, and that will track our flight for us and score us on how well we fly the aeroplane. Okay, so we're going to have some weather to deal with, unless we head out to the coast first, I guess, but we're going over to Mount Hogan now, so that'd be a long way around, wouldn't it, to get to it? So we'll just fly through the weather, I guess. Just out of interest, looking back on LittleNavMap, what elevation is Mount Hogan? Or Hotham, how are you supposed to pronounce it? So elevation 4,000 feet. So yeah, we're going to probably climb a little bit along the way then, up to say 7,000. 7,000 would be more prudent, wouldn't it? But anyway, so now we've got the ACARS running. It's watching what we're doing, so we need to be a bit more careful about doing things in the right order. So the beacon and the nav light can come on, battery on, alternator on, mixture is rich. And crack the throttle open a little bit, and then engine is running. So let's just keep an eye. This is a Coronado aeroplane, so it's not going to be wonderfully accurate, but it's pretty good. So we just hold the RPM just above 1,000 RPM there for the engine to warm up. But I don't think it really is modelled that wonderfully. So avionics on. Now do we get control in this aircraft? I don't think it's modelled that accurately. You don't get cowl flap controls, I don't think. So we've got heating for the cabin, defrost, pitot heat here, strobe, taxi light, landing light. So anyway, before we do anything, let's go and I guess we could set, we'll go for 7,500 feet for the cruise and turn GPS on. We'll go and program our basic flight plan in. So this is just a Coronado. If we look outside, Bonanza H35 V-Tail. Well, I believe it's called the H35. So should we try the controls out? Just waiting for the GPS to come up. We'll also go and turn on the transponder while we're here. Not that we're going to use it, but it does have an autopilot, a basic one, so we'll be using that along the way. Just waiting for the GPS. Have I tried Air Show Assistant? No, I've not tried it yet. Just waiting for this. They've slowed this down, haven't they, to make it a little bit more realistic in acquiring satellites. So, first waypoint, YMEN, enter. Next one is Y hot. So, Yankee Mike Oscar Hotel. Oh no, got that wrong. Oscar Tango. Oh, Yankee Mike Oscar Tango. That's better. No, that doesn't look right either. YH Yankee Hotel Oscar Tango. I'll get it right one day, won't I? Can I just roll backwards through the letters? Yankee Hotel Oscar Tango. There we go, that looks a lot better. And then Yankee Sierra Charlie Bravo. And finally Yankee Sierra Bravo Kilo. Whoa, what have we done? Does the simulator just had a fit? I think it just has. It started taking keyboard commands. Oh dear. I think the simulator's gone wrong. I actually can't get it out of drone camera mode. Oh no, I pressed Y, didn't I? Oh, I hadn't got the focus on here. That's what happened. It went into slew mode. I will get a penalty on the flight for that. YSBK. I'll reset the flight in a moment. Enter. So that's correct. Flight plan can be removed. We've got the route showing up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back into ACARS, abort that flight, yes, and do it again. So YMEN to YSBK. Zero, we said 7,500, didn't we, for the later altitudes. Cargo 0, route is still in there, and start flight, yes, okay, minimize that. Okay, so we've got a bit of taxiing to do, so double back on ourselves and then out to runway 17 based on the wind on the ground at Essendon. So I want to have a look around Essendon as well. We'll do some circuits around the place because this is where OrbX are based. So I imagine it's going to have some significant specialisation around scenery, like their offices and things like that. It should be quite handy to see. Oh, I didn't put the lights on, did I? So taxi light goes on. I will need to be careful about taxi speeds. Apparently this is a very, very accurate rendition of Essendon, which you would expect with it being OrbX's home airport. So once we get into the air, we'll circle the airfield a little bit. Okay, so we're doubling back on ourselves here to get to runway 17. Be careful not to go too fast taxiing, otherwise I'll get penalised for that on the flight plan. You know, the ACARS client, sorry. The weather does look to be clearing a little bit. It was awful when I first loaded in. Okay, we shouldn't need flaps on this big long runway. We should be able to get enough speed to just rotate. I'll just bring it to a halt for a moment. So we want the landing lights on we've got the beacon light on, we've got the taxi light, put the strobe light on, pitot heat on, and we should be good to go. Put the yoke back on for the moment.
Airport information, Kilo 20000, wind 198 at 10, visibility 4, sky condition, ceiling 1,700 feet broken.
Let's just tune out the ATIS. Yeah, it's a bit foggy and misty, isn't it? Okay, so if we do a left turn, we'll do an orbit of the airfield. Keep an eye on the vertical speed over there. Oh, it's a shame it's so misty, isn't it? You can see the level of detail on these little roads with the trees and the incidental buildings. They've put a lot more effort into it, haven't they? And the road junctions nearby have been tweaked, I'm guessing. It's just a shame it's so misty. We'll have to come back again another day when it's sunnier. Get a stall. We're nowhere near stall speed. Not within 50 knots of it. Okay, so we're going to bring the airplane round towards the compass direction. I'm just wondering, this appears to be not reflecting the GPS route. Oh, of course, in aircraft of this era, I'll just get this sorted out on autopilot and then we'll have a talk about what's going on here. So we want the heading bug lined up to begin with the direction we actually want to be going. Oops. So if we go and turn the autopilot on now, so autopilot engage, and go for heading mode. We'll go for altitude hold for the moment. So the airplane's quite happily doing sort of 130-ish on 50% throttle, or no, 70% throttle, sorry. It's quite a quick aeroplane. We'll get it going climbing up to the altitude we want to be at then. So, actually this doesn't use the pre-selector in the same way, does it? So yeah, look, this has gone absolutely around the bend. So, it's interesting that it's done that, to be honest. Hopefully that's not a bug. Yeah, the Coronado aircraft never quite work the way you'd imagine they should. They have a very unique interpretation of how the altitude pre-selector works. So anyway, we're climbing at 1,000 feet a minute. Let's have a look at the engines, or engine gauges I should say. Just look at the manifold pressure there. So you can pretty much push it flat out and it won't hurt it, because it's dumbed down a little bit. So we are north of the trek, but we want to increase range on this. So what we'll do is just turn our... Yeah, what I was going to mention about, that I was going to come back to, is the HSI on older models bears no relation, the course bears no relation to what's going on, so you have to kind of align it for your own purposes. So what we could do is if we pull this back to the first page, it gives us the aircraft oriented view of the world, and it gives us the direction of track as well. So we actually want to be going 60 degrees or more than that to come back onto the track. So if we went 70 degrees, we know 60 is the track line. Just coming up to 3,000 feet, we're going to have to start leaning out the engine a little bit. Again, it's not tremendously accurate in the Coronado aircraft, but at least you can play with the mixture and watch the RPM and see what you can get away with. So you can see here 46 minutes on this leg. So we're going to climb up to 7,500 feet, hopefully. Back down here and push this. Yeah, there we go, 7,500. So it should hold 1,000 feet a minute quite easily. It's quite windy up here, isn't it? So, seeing as we're in a GA aeroplane, we don't have to have our landing lights on all day long. So we're going to turn those off. We'll turn our taxi lights off as well. Thrown around a little bit. So there must be a lever somewhere for the cowl flaps. Now where have they hidden it? Or am I just being blind? Down a bit. Is that got any labels down here? Nope. That looks like that should be able to... Yeah, it's got a rot on it. I'd be blowed if I can see the adjuster for it in the cockpit. So is this the same sort of aeroplane that the girl died in recently? I believe it is. But the problem from the video I saw is potentially that she did not test or check the autopilot sufficiently. But it's very easy for people to make videos with hindsight and information after the fact. Inside the aeroplane, you never can tell what was, what they were dealing with. So, but yeah, I always think these channels that tell horror stories and point out every single fault, they've got the wonderful benefit of hindsight. Now this has got some special features hidden around it. I have to find a tablet to do them now, and I can't remember where it is. I thought, in common with the other Coronados, it would have a tablet nearby. Am I being dim? Or maybe this is one of the lesser Coronado aircraft, because you'd have thought that should open to expose extra functionality, like the switches to turn on the GTN 750 if you wanted it, things like that. But I really don't remember if this one has all of that functionality or not. We have got distance measuring equipment though, so should we have a play with some radio navigation along the way? So we're about to cross our track, by the way, so I'm going to go to nav mode on the autopilot, and it should, with a bit of luck, pick up the track. And there it goes. We're just coming up to 7,500 feet as well. So we're levelling out. So we'll be able to clear those hills that are off in the distance quite handily. Cool, that weather does look a bit fierce out there, doesn't it? So let's push on. We're just playing around with the mixture to see if we can get any more performance out of it. Watching the RPM and leaning it out. Yeah, we're starting to lose RPM there, so that's about the limit. But we're using far less fuel than if we were running rich, which is good. So am I missing something here? Should the H35 have a tablet in common with all the other Coronados? That's just an air. Oh, here we go. There's the cow flap. Hurrah, done it. So does that give us any, again, a simplified aeroplane? I don't think it's going to make much difference to the aeroplane. It's just a lever that you can push and pull a bit like a children's toy. Yeah, quite how I missed that earlier, I don't know. So what are the temperatures doing? So outside air temperature is about 7 or 8 degrees, so it's nowhere near zero, which is good. Because obviously within a few degrees of zero means icing. Oh, we were going to have a look at VOR radios, weren't we? So there's that's TACAN down at East Sale. I wonder if this can pick up TACAN on its... Although TACAN doesn't usually tend to be very far range. If we go show information for East Sale TACAN, It's 180 miles, that's really good actually. 108.1. I wonder if we can pick up TACAN then on the nav radios. Yes, we can. Very good. Obviously the distance and the time and speed calculations will be out because we're not flying towards it, we're flying across it at an angle, and it's debatable. Without knowing what the unit does in this particular aircraft, you can't always be confident of how it's doing that. That's interesting, it's on when it's off. You'd expect to have to switch that to N1 to get data on there. Anyway, gives us some numbers, so we have something to work with at least to back up the GPS. Not that the GPS is ever go wrong in flight sim, but because what we could do is tune into what's this one called? It's just the Melbourne, isn't it? The Melbourne VOR. Oh, that's the airport. I want the. Okay, why is it not letting me see it? There we go. Yeah, the Melbourne VOR. We could tune into that and fly the radial from it, but that's got a range of 180 miles, so it would work. So we could do that instead, just for a bit of fun. So if we tune in Melbourne at 11410, just until we get to the next airport. So 11410. It's 114. Switch that to active. We'll go to heading mode, but we'll line it up first, just so we can switch off the GPS tracking mode and have nothing untoward happen on the autopilot. So we've lined up the heading bug. Then we go to heading mode, so it's just following the heading now. And then we can press the CDI button. So you can either do it over here, or there's another button up here, I think. Which, no it didn't. Okay, so VLOC. So now we can change our course, and the course knob has some meaning. So if we wanted to fly a given track, so we'll draw the radial in here, measure distance from the VOR to Mount Hogan, 63 degrees. So if we line up the course with about 63, so it's about there, so it means we're off to the right of the track, which, as you can see, we are off to the right of the track. So we should be close enough. Well, I think it's within 1 dot. Let's try it. If we put it on nav mode, is it going to? Yes, it's going to capture. So I didn't think we might be close enough to the beam to do it. So it will arrange itself an intercept course, so it will level out again in a moment, hopefully. That's a very steep intercept. It's about 60 degrees. So it's just scouting across to get onto that radial. Don't be surprised if it's not exactly the same as the map, because I think the simulator does simulate variance in long distance radio signals. About 145 knots. That's not doing bad, are we? Should have a look out the window, really. Enjoy the scenery going past. So what are we saying here? We've got 43 miles to run. Oh, sorry, they are from the original, the VOR station. Now, the line we've drawn on the map is 125 miles long. Okay, so we have to do the maths in our head and count it down. Yeah, so about 75, 78 miles to go. And we actually get a decent calculated speed, although it looks a lot higher than our indicated airspeed. That's obviously because we're at high altitude. So this is actually speed over the ground. So it'll be interesting to, you can see this, look, 180 knots in LittleNavMap based on the GPS. And yeah, this is showing in terms of real speed over the ground, in terms, you know, measuring the distance over time. It's showing us the same speed, which is good. We are shifting. And leaving some of that weather behind, thankfully, so we'll get some nice views throughout the rest of the flight. Shall we look at Navigraph? So we're coming into a clear patch. There's another piece of weather coming, but then we should be clear over Mount Hogan then, which is good. Okay, I'm going to turn head tracking off for a moment so I can have a glug of coffee and read the livestream comments. So Fredericks is saying yes, you've got the EGT meter, we could use that as well to help lean the engine out. Oh, I see, because the Bonanza was a famous flyer, that's why it doesn't have a tablet, because that's got the Coronado markings all over it, hasn't it? That makes sense. So T. John Rod says flying KAUS to KDTW. Is that Dallas? KDTW? I can never remember the ICAO codes in the US. So many of them. Love the channel. Well done. Thank you. All I'm really doing is sharing my escapades. Anybody could do the same. Sharing the things I learn along the way, sharing the mistakes. I think sharing the mistakes is actually more important than the things I do well. There's always something to learn, isn't there? Doesn't help that I jump between airplanes on every single flight. Am I going to make a video on the Flight Sim Studio E19095? I have. There's a couple of them. Already done them. So I think I did a live stream and a first look. Let's just pull up a browser and have a quick look while we're on here. So if I go YouTube and pull up myself, I get the most random stuff advertised to me. It's unbelievable. What am I looking for? On my channel, let's look at recent videos. Videos. So, okay, yeah, so I only actually had recorded videos with the Tomcat recently, but I did a couple of live streams with the 195. There we go. There's two of them. One of them was Rockhampton to Hamilton, the other one was Sydney to Rockhampton. Oh, sorry, Rockhampton to Hamilton, and then Sydney to Rockhampton. The only reason I've been flying Australia recently is because it's daytime in Australia when I have time to record, which is at night for me. But they're in the channel. If you want to keep up with what I'm up to in the simulator, if you go to johnbeckett.substack.com, I've got a blog, and you can subscribe. I'm obviously seeing it without the subscribe button because I'm logged in, but if I do this via what do they call it, an in private window in Edge, you'll see this, and you can put your email in, or even if you click no, not yet, and you go and have a look, you can subscribe and stick your email in. So whenever I do a flight, I post the video into the blog immediately afterwards, and if you're subscribed, then you get an email. Yeah, so it's a nice easy way of knowing about that. So I'll put the notes in the live stream chat here. So subscribe to the blog. https://johnbeckett.substack.com. And then I should be able to pin that message so it stays in view. Okay, so hopefully that will be useful. So yeah, I don't send out spam or anything like that on the blog. It is just literally each time I do a flight or any sort of recording, I throw it into the blog as well, so anybody that's following it gets an email. Oh, any dream planes not yet added to the simulator? That's a good question. I'm not really a huge fan of military aircraft in the sim. I have covered them purely because people have asked me to. Oh, sim's just frozen. Is it going to wake back up? Give it a moment. Yeah. So let's have a look at the data before we go much further. So the GPS is showing 62 miles to run. We're showing 62. We know it's about 120 in between, so that's good. It's 125, wasn't it? So we're about halfway to the first airport. Dream aeroplanes. Oh, what can we think of? I don't know. How about everybody that's watching? What aeroplanes are you hoping to see in the simulator? Whoa, look at that turbulence kicking us around. The autopilot fighting it. Are the lights on? Oh, they are. Yeah. Oh, the Lancaster, of course, yes. Is it Aeroplane Heaven are making the Lancaster, I think. So, yeah, T-John was saying about the V-Tail Bonanza was dangerous. I think only in so much as wealthy people without enough experience flew it. Therefore, they got a nickname of the Doctor Killer. I think it's because doctors earned a lot of money, and they were, you know, it was kind of a status thing having an aeroplane, so there were a number of doctors killed. But I think it's kind of a newspaper story that had a catchy title that caught on. I don't think there's much truth. In reality, if you look at the stats, in reality, I guess you have to be quite wealthy to have access to an aircraft. And if your job is quite demanding, as a doctor's might be, you might not have all of the time to devote to training and practice. You can see how the numbers would be skewed, can't you? So Fredericks is saying, I see you've made Transmitter open source. It would be amazing for Xbox users if it was available in the marketplace. Is that totally impossible? Yeah, it's totally impossible. The real problem, the reason Transmitter exists, and it's a bit of a hack, it always has been. I'll show everybody, if they haven't seen it, what Transmitter is. So it's this little program, and this is the latest kind of cut down build of it that's got the server URL available in it now for the first time. So it gives you server URL, so this is an online web page that every second when it's connected, Transmitter will send your location in the simulator to. So it talks to Flight Simulator in this little program and sends your coordinates to this URL and this data that you type into here. So if I say connect, it's now doing it, look. So every 1 second it's sending the data to that server. So what does that mean? So if we go to Virtual Flight Online /who, this is the page of the server that's publicly available, so it shows where everybody is. So if we go and look down at, my geography is appalling, isn't it? There I am, look. That's me. So that's the data that Transmitter is sending every second. Obviously this doesn't refresh all the time, but the Transmitter also gives, or the website that the source files are there for, also makes available an API that LittleNavMap can see. So you will notice there's a little red aeroplane that's chasing mine. So every few seconds, LittleNavMap is reading that data file from the internet. So my aeroplane is there on the map live on LittleNavMap. But it's not just me, it's anyone connected to the same server. You can see there's somebody else over there at Bankstown. There's Saragon, their name is. If we go and look elsewhere in the world, so let's go and look at the UK, it tends to be quite popular. He says, famous last words. If we look at the map here, we can see where people are, can't we? So there's some people flying around down by Hobart at the moment. So if we, yeah, here they are, look. So every 5 seconds you'll see them move. So that's what Transmitter does. So obviously I've plugged in one server. The problem with Transmitter is it doesn't scale very well. When you get up to about 100 people using it at once, it starts to lag. So that's literally because you've got 200 requests a second potentially going in and out of an Apache server, which, you know, unless you've got a really beefy server, it's going to struggle with that. So let's just keep an eye on our altitude and the altitude of the hills. So let's have a look on the map and see. So this is the Snowy Mountains. So there is a little airfield over here, Snowy Range Airfield. It's a tiny little airstrip on top of the hill. It's probably a bit too far away for us to see it easily on the way past. So if we count the hills, when we get over towards Billabong, there'll be a flat area, and it will be out on the end of that flat area. It's over there, isn't it? So towards the back end of that flat area, I think, is where we're talking about. It's probably further out of view, just below that top area. If we're looking closely at this, we can see the contour lines. Yeah, this is higher, look, and there's a bit of a dip down, then it climbs back up to a ridge at the back. So it's out over there somewhere. But we might get close enough to see. More eloquent way than I said it, that there's nothing wrong with the V35. It's down to the training and experience of the users. I think it probably is less forgiving than a traditional layout, but only if you put it into areas of the flight envelope where it is less forgiving, if that makes sense. So if you fly it within safe parameters, it won't bite back. No, I'm not sure that is where I thought. That's the flat area here, isn't it, that we're seeing? So further on, there's a much bigger flat area. So that's that Howitt Plains, that's here, isn't it? So it's over there, by the look of it. It's very difficult to judge range, isn't it, from the cockpit? You have to purely look at the shape of the land and match it against the map. So yeah, that flat area that we were looking at, it's just this small area here. There's Howlett Plains over there, and then opposite Howlett Plains is Billabong, which is over there. So Paul Robinson is saying, I logged into Transmitter in from the UK, so what I didn't show up. Perhaps I just didn't leave it long enough. Let's go and have a look. If I can find the UK. It may be just due to the lagging issue with it dropping aeroplanes, because there's too many people using it, maybe. If we go and have a look on here and refresh it, Scroll down to the bottom. There's only 50 people on at the moment, but that's when it starts to get into trouble. But yeah, you can see them if you zoom in. If you want, you can also go and click on somebody and it will fly the map to where they are. So there's obviously a group flight going on here. Very cool, along the Trans-Canada Highway. But yeah, for group flights, Transmitter works really nicely. Obviously, by making the source code available to all, it's democratized it so anyone can run a server. So you can have just you and your friends and have the server to yourself. So if you're doing ATC, that obviously becomes really, really useful, because then you haven't got to compete with anybody, and everybody can turn their response times up to, you know, like 1 or 2 seconds per cycle in LittleNavMap, so the airplanes are much more accurate without murdering the server for everybody else. So all you need to do to install Transmitter, you get all the files with it, is go and get a LAMP server, as they're called. If you've done any web development, you know that's Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, which you can get one from DigitalOcean or somebody like that without doing any programming. You can go and spin one up and go in, make a database, drop the files in place, set the config file up, and you're ready to go. You don't even need a domain name, you can just use an IP address. Obviously you then need to communicate that IP address to your friends to plug into their copy of Transmitter. Sorry if I'm losing everybody talking about web development stuff, it's my job. I kind of take it as read that people know it, and I know a lot of people don't, so I apologise if I lost everybody there. So Phil is saying, I recently landed at Wenatchee State Airstrip, and off the beaten track grass strip in Washington State. I had to fly over an F-14 Tomcat waiting to take off. Could that be multiplayer? Yeah, definitely. Tom says, do you ever use VATSIM? Very rarely. The reason being, actually, I've thought about doing it. There's been an item on the kind of the to-do list for some point to do an example flight. I used to fly on VATSIM a long time ago, but since I've been doing content for YouTube, there's always the risk of VATSIM, especially if it's busy. You're going to look for somewhere busy, so you've got something to listen to. There's always a risk you could be sat in a queue for 20 minutes at the apron of an airport, in a busy airport, or put into a hold, or, you know, there's always a risk. And again, thinking kind of pragmatically about it, if you know there aren't many controllers on, and you're near busy airspace to listen to pilots, and you know you're only going to be flying VFR, and you don't want to actually distract them from their job to control you into a separate airfield, then I kind of don't want to burden them, if that makes sense. Which is probably a silly way to think about it, because it's their job and they volunteered to do it, but I don't want to make their job more difficult than it needs to be. Because I don't know if anyone that hasn't flown on VATSIM, they have like a pyramid structure in terms of the airfields and the sectors, where a minimal number of staff cover more and more bases depending on how many people are controlling at a given time. So if you have got enough people to have ground and tower and departures and sector controllers, then you can be handed off between them all. If you've only got one person working all of those frequencies, they will be monitoring all of them at the same time. So you'll still have the handoffs, but then they'll jump over and be the next person you talk to as well. And yeah, it gets... Or if they're not doing that, you'll just stay with them. And you'll get often, you know, like a sector controller controlling lots of airfields, or a tower somewhere controlling all the way up to the sector. It's that's probably the better way to think of it. Somebody operating tower at a big airport often ends up controlling a sector. So Willie Mac is asking what I've set on as the sweet spot for the graphics. I haven't. I've got a fairly quick processor, a fairly quick motherboard, fairly quick RAM, and a fairly quick GPU. It's an NVIDIA 3080 RTX. I only render on my desktop at 1080p on purpose. Therefore, OBS can take the native image with no scaling and send it straight to YouTube for a 1080p feed. I also limit the flight sim to 30 frames a second, again, so OBS has nothing extra to do. It sends it out at 30 frames a second to YouTube. So I'm taking the heat out of it as much as I can. Also, you will maybe have noticed, I've certainly noticed, if I am streaming, it is smoother than if I record. Because obviously recording, your computer has some work to do to encode on the fly and save it to storage. Whereas if you're streaming it, it just throws it out of the pipe to the internet to deal with all of that. And I've got fibre to the house. So I've got lots and lots of headroom on upload and download speed. That said, I've got the main machine that Flight Sim is running on is on a Wi-Fi connection. It's not wired. And I know I could probably smooth things out a bit more by having a wired internet connection, because quite often the Wi-Fi might drop down to it's difficult to say what the top speed might be. I think the limit of the fibre, certainly to the router, and I've tested it in the past, the router it's synchronous, same speed up and down. I think it's 500 megabit. And obviously I can pay to have faster. I think I can go up to 2 terabit or gigabit, whichever it is. It's gigabit, isn't it? I can go up to 2 gigabit, but there's no point. Because 500 megabits enough, and obviously you're just paying through the nose for more of the optic, or not more of the optical fibre cable, but it's an entirely artificial tier system, isn't it, for them to arrange business customers to pay more. But yeah, so having 500 up and down, I think that the Wi-Fi inside the house, or certainly to this machine, is probably, I get about 50 on a good day over the Wi-Fi, but that's purely because the walls in this house are kind of strong enough to survive a battleship firing on them, I think. These houses were built in the 1930s, so they were built to last. Okay, let's put the view back outside. We'll look this way for a while, shall we? And we'll have a little look at the ACARS client. So it's busy running in the background. What it actually means is in the virtual airline, if I go to va.virtualflight.online and go and scroll down, actually it is forgotten I'm logged in because I shut the browser down. So if we come down and go to the front page, you can see there I am on the map, and you can see the route I'm taking. So obviously it's not a straight line route. It knows the basics, but not the overall route. So you can see where I'm going, or thereabouts. Actually, we ought to check on the map where I really am, actually. I'm nearly there. So this will be watching me the whole time in the airline, and then at the end it'll give me a score sheet on how well I flew the aeroplane. Okay, so we need to start thinking about descending. But we need to spot the airfield first. So let's have a look on the LittleNavMap and centre it up on us. So it is down in this valley then. Actually no, that's on top of the plane here. So there's the valley goes in and then back up again. So the altitude of Mount Hogan is 4,200. So we're a good altitude, so once we cross over here we should be able to spot it. But we'll circle it first, because as I said, I've bought several of these airfields with the express intention of having a look at them. And there it is. So what we're going to do is go back to heading mode. So instead of following that radial, which is getting more and more dodgy, just turning in towards the airfield a bit, and we'll keep an eye out. So Andy is saying he'd love to learn what all the different instruments do. When we take off again, I'll take you around the cockpit explaining what each instrument does. They're not complicated. The only one that's a bit complicated is this one called the HSI. Yeah, we'll get there with that one. This has ADF on it as well, I just noticed. It's interesting. So ADF is over here, the radio, but the actual visual indication of it is there. So you tune in an ADF mast. Is there any around here actually? I don't know that there are. They don't tend to have a very good range, and they're being phased out. It's kind of old. There's one over there, 293. We'll have a play with it in a minute. So we're flying over the top of the airfield right now. So he says famous last words. There it is. So let's come off the autopilot. So we'll circle the airfield once. Which way's the wind? Okay, so we'll circle the airfield entirely once, then come back in on this side for an approach. We could actually do a full stop, couldn't we? Taxi in and have a nosy around, and then taxi back out and take off again. So this airplane has a klaxon that doesn't allow you to go below 50% on the throttle unless you've got the gear down. So I'm presuming when we're lined up, it's got puppy lights, hasn't it, which is quite interesting. On the airspeed. Don't want to get too slow. That's the klaxon for the throttle again. Hey, should we watch the gear come out? Oh, I wasn't quite here quite quickly enough, was I, to do that? Should do it again, so you get to see it. Okay, so we do want to open the cowl flaps, put the taxi and landing lights on. Extend the flaps halfway. The weather's quite a lot calmer than it was earlier, isn't it? So you can see the lights alongside the runway. There's 4 whites, that means we're too high. We're aiming for 2 reds and 2 whites. So if I descend, see them light up red one at a time. Well, that's the plan anyway. It's a very shallow approach. There we go, look, 1 red and 2 reds. Should we put the yoke back on so you can at least, oh, you're not going to see it from this angle. Okay, we're not going to make it to turn off immediately, or are we? Or just flaps up. Probably left tyre marks on the runway. It's interesting, there was a max wingspan sign there, obviously because of the proximity of the fence. So there's a couple of aeroplanes parked up. Just being nosy, really. Mount Hogan Airport. They appear to have done the interior. Okay, we're going to stop here, put on the parking brake, go to the drone camera, turn the speed down on the drone camera and go and have a nosy around. Hello. What have they got on the board here then? Some Aboriginal things. Very cool. Coffee machine, looks like. Anybody want a coffee? £17 a cup. We're at Mount Hogan. This is the OrbX scenery for Mount Hogan. It's very cool, isn't it? Should we have a look through the car park side? There's a pilot obviously sat there. Going at the opposite side of the airport now. So there's the parking. Okay, there's nothing spectacular about that, is there? Actually, let's go through the roof and have a look. Some of the incidental buildings. pretty cool, isn't it? Tiny little airfield up here that is very well modelled. I guess that's what the scenery developers look for, is small airfields that are interesting. Okay, so back inside the airplane. Off the parking brake. And we'll get back on our way. So we have to remember we're over 4,000 feet up. So I'm going to go all the way down to the end of the runway and not risk anything. So we've got a long enough runway, we shouldn't need flaps. But we'll find out very shortly. So holding the centre line with a little bit of rudder. Gently pull back and we're in the air. Gear up. You can see the airplane's crabbing ever so gently. It's starting to weathercock, look. The tail's coming round. Okay, so if we put this back onto GPS mode, we can just follow the GPS track. The altitude pre-selector has still got the same height in it. So we'll just trim the airplane out. Way up. Just over trimmed it a little bit. There we go. I think turbulence isn't helping our cause here. So if we go and put autopilot on and heading mode. Oh, I didn't line the heading bug up, did I? Beginner's mistake. Of course the airplane's turning us 90 degrees across our track now. Look how slow, actually, that's a really good point. Look how slow the autopilot is at responding. So I moved the heading bug. It's just something that's worth keeping in mind. And look at how slow we're going. There goes a stall. So the autopilot is dumb. So I'm going to force it out of the autopilot. It will, I think it disengages. So the autopilot has forced basically almost all the trim we had available to us. So that was a really good example of how that girl might have got into trouble. If you're not watching what's going on, autopilots are stupid. And they tend to wander as well in the real world. They're not perfect. So that will be a penalty now on my ACARS report because I had the stall klaxon go off. So autopilot back on, heading mode back on, and let's go and engage vertical speed mode and say climb us at 800 feet a minute, and we can spin the course knob round as much as we like because it means nothing when we're in GPS mode. It's just to make sense of it basically. So so we've got something to go on. So the actual direction of the track. Whoa, look at that. What's going on? 1,000 miles. Look, we've got an incorrect waypoint in our flight plan. Okay, so what we'll do in the meantime is we'll go to heading mode at 29 degrees and then we'll sort it out. So we'll go back, we're in heading mode at the moment. I love it when things like this happen because it causes you to have to think. In fact, we'll go a couple of degrees beyond 30, so it will be edging its way back towards the course we should have been on. Right, let's have a look at this then. So I'm going to turn head tracking off so we can just move the view over here and see what this has done. So we should be going YHOT to YSCB. We've got an incorrect waypoint in the middle. That was one I miskeyed earlier, wasn't it? So what we can do is put the cursor in here, roll until we get to that one, press menu on it, and we should be able to... Can we delete a leg? I can never remember how you do this. Or can you put a leg up? Clear. If we do direct to YSCB, that will achieve the same thing, won't it? So it's jumped the flight plan leg. Makes sense? And now it's working, look. Then we can go to nav mode and it will just follow the track. So that was unintentionally exciting. So let's spin the course round so it makes some sense in terms of our track. So it was 29 degrees, wasn't it, on the map? So you can see we're off to the right ever so slightly and it's just getting us back on. See, this is miles out. This quite often happens where the GPS in the aeroplane doesn't quite agree with LittleNavMap. It's quite amusing when it does that. Anyway, so if we increase the range on this, you can actually see our destination is out there already. So we've got 150 mile range on the screen and we're obviously a little way inside it already. 130 to go. So let's have a look at the live stream. Yeah, you can clear waypoints as well, but Direct2 did the same thing. Okay, so somebody was asking about looking around the instruments. Oh, hello. Lee has written something and the robot got rid of it, obviously. I apologise when that happens. It's a bit overzealous on what it blocks, I think. Andy was on about asking what all the different instruments do. So, shall we work around them? We've got a few minutes flying along. Let me just make sure the airplane's configured correctly before we do anything. So, mixture's good. The landing light can come off, the tank light can come off. What's the outside air temperature like? It's getting warmer. Very cool. The fuel is... Okay, we've got to switch tanks. We're getting unbalanced. So that's down here, isn't it, in this aeroplane? Or I think it is. Okay, where have they put the... Oh, it's down here. Got to use the right tank up. Okay, so let's have a walk around the instruments. So I'll do this with the head tracking because it makes it easier to squirrel my way around the cockpit. Except I will elevate us down. So this is turn coordinator. It tells you, the little bubble tells you if the tail is following the body through the air or if the plane is skidding. Yeah? So if it slides to one side or the other, it means the tail is obviously sliding from one side to the other. So when you're doing a turn, aeroplanes won't necessarily, the tail won't necessarily follow the nose around a turn, depending on all sorts of reasons why. So you may have to use the rudder to do what's called a coordinated turn, and obviously the most efficient way for an aeroplane to fly around a corner is for the tail to follow the direction the body's going and not to skid sideways. So you can use the rudder to keep that bubble in the middle. Okay, so there's a marker here left and right as well. So on this design of this, as you bank the aeroplane, this bar tilts left and right. So when it's aligned on the left or the right marker, you're doing what's called a standard rate turn, where you turn through, now I'm going to get this wrong, 180 degrees a minute, isn't it? So 360 degrees in 2 minutes. So if you're wanting to do, very precise navigation, say you've got low visibility, so that suddenly comes into its own of being able to very accurately fly a constant radius turn. And it's useful for holds as well, when you're doing the, doubling back on yourself to fly an accurate hold pattern. Obviously you've got airspeed indicator, which measures the air. Now can we see this, the probe on the... I don't know if it's, yeah, there it is. There's a thing called a pitot tube underneath the wing there. And the air pressure hitting that gives you your altitude and airspeed. So so you've got airspeed here. So it's worth noting the higher you get in the sky, the thinner the air gets. So the less speed is indicated. That's why there's a discrepancy right now between the speed over the ground and what we're seeing in the air. So if we look on LittleNavMap, which will give us the GPS speed, 172 knots ground speed. So that's our actual speed. But we're being indicated about 150. Yeah, that's because the air is so much thinner at 7,500 feet that we've lost the best part of, what, 20 knots of speed. Attitude indicator, obviously. Altimeter. The altimeter, you'll maybe have noticed they have these little windows either side called Coleman windows, where you can adjust the altimeter for the air pressure, because again, as I mentioned a moment ago, the altimeter works by reading air pressure. And once you get above, I'm not going to get into transition altitudes today, but you can adjust it. That's all we really need to know about. And the reason you need to adjust it is to know exactly what altitude the ground is, or what your altitude in relation to the ground is. So if you know that the runways are given altitude, you can tune your altimeter to agree with what the control tower at the airfield is saying. Therefore, when you get near the ground, the altimeter will be absolutely accurate at ground level. Vertical speed measures the rate you're climbing or descending. Obviously the autopilot's flying us along nicely at 7,500 feet at the moment. Obviously if we were climbing, it will go up when it's in thousands of feet a minute, or descend at thousands of feet a minute. We're not going to get into this too much, there's too much to talk about. This is a horizontal situation indicator, so you can use it for radio and GPS navigation, and for the heading bug as you saw a moment ago. Depending on the aeroplane, it can drift, so as you do tight turns, we'll try it now. We'll press D and see if it moves. No. So more modern aircraft, I think they adjust themselves as you fly based on GPS inputs. Okay, so you've got an ADF here, automatic direction finder. So there's this we saw a beacon on the map earlier, didn't we? Is it over this way? 395, what's the range going to be on that? Non-directional beacon. It's only got a 25-mile range, we're much further away than that. That's a shame. Don't think there's any near us. But the way they work, you tune in the frequency on the little radio down here, and then the arrow points directly towards the station. Yeah. Over here we've got a nav radio. This is the older version of this. So I can show you how it works if we tune in. It's going to be nav 2, isn't it? So if we tune this in to a radio beacon, there's one we're coming towards up here, Canberra. So 11670 for Canberra VOR. So over on the radios, if we put in 116, that's nav 1 though, isn't it? Do we get a nav 2 in this aeroplane? Oh, it's down here, isn't it? Of course it is. 11670. And you will see this has now come alive. So the way this works is if you tune, this is called the Omni Bearing Selector. I don't quite know how it got that name. If you spin it around, you can see it says 2 here. So we're spinning this compass rose around the edge, and then the needle lines up into the middle. That means it is, if we fly at 30 degrees, we'll go directly to that VOR station. Yeah, and we can check that. So if we measure on the map, 30 degrees would take us directly to that VOR station. Okay, if we wanted to fly into the VOR at say 40 or 35 degrees, what it's saying is we are to the right of the 35 degree radial, as they call them, to the Canberra VOR. So if you imagine you draw a line in, I'm not going to get this right first go, but if we draw a line, 39, but it doesn't really matter. It means we are to the right, so we are to the right of the line. Obviously if we turned left for a while, that would swing back in, and then we could fly down that 35 degree line. So you can, with a radio beacon, the trick being, you can choose to fly into a radio beacon from any angle, and this being off to one side will tell you if you are on the line or not, or if you're off to one side or the other. So you have to kind of form a picture in your head of what's going on. You'll see there's a horizontal bar as well. I think this is easier to describe this than that. So a good example is ILS. So with ILS you would align the Omni Bearing Selector to the runway direction, and then it tells you where you are in relation to the line. So you can look at the compass and form the picture in your head of where you think you are. And obviously once that line is in the middle, you are actually on the centre line of the runway, lined up with it. You might be 10 miles in front of you, but you'll know you're on the centre line or not. The horizontal bar is your vertical position, so in the same way that can swing from side to side, if you've got an ILS frequency tuned in, if you imagine we're flying along and there's an airfield down here with a beam coming up towards us, if we're on the beam going down typically at 3 degrees towards the ground, that will be in the middle. If we are above the beam, that will fall below. If we are below the beam, that will go above. So it's kind of showing where the beam is in relation to us, with us being in the middle. You don't have to fly directly to radio beacons. If we spin this all the way around, you can just as happily fly bearings away from them as well. You'll notice the little marker will flick round as soon as it goes through 180 degrees. There we go. So if we line this up all the way around, whoops, why are we getting a warning? Good for fuel. Oh, it's the overspeed warning. Or is it? No, it isn't. Why do we have a warning? flicked something by accident. Well, no, because the tank imbalance is coming actually down better than it was. Makes no sense. Have we got a bug in the aeroplane? Why have we got an alarm going off? No warnings anywhere. This is going to drive us around a bend, isn't it? I'm trying to think what they would have simulated and what they wouldn't have. Still warm outside. How bizarre. I wonder if it's to do with... No, because we've got no warnings lighting up. I just tried cycling the gear. I think it's a bug. I think that's a bug because it's doing it from outside. Oh look, the cowl flaps have stuck open. We have an unserviceable aeroplane. Meanwhile, we're busy deviating from the track. There's no warning lights anywhere. I think this is a bug. Unless somebody very knowledgeable is going to... I don't think this implements the breakers. Yeah, you can't click the breakers in this one. How annoying. Can we open the door? We can. Get some air in. Oh, that's frustrating. Let's try something a bit drastic. Nope. I don't understand. Did we just click that by accident? It's the warning light test switch we must have done when we were trying to get to the OBS There we go. Solved. And that's why we do these things. Now everybody knows. Okay, let's just fly straight line until we know what's going on. So this is still reflecting the GPS, and I bet this is working without that even being switched on. So we're coming back towards the track. So we'll get the autopilot back on. We'll get heading mode back on. Whoops. And we'll get this flying back up to the appropriate altitude. This has not armed, it's continued to climb. Interesting. It didn't stop climbing. So it's taken us up to 1,100 feet. Sorry, 11,000 feet. It's a good job we discovered it, really. So let's bring it back down then. So if we arm... Look at that. So it's engaging vertical speed, but it's not going to... Coronado are famously got, well, not famous, but their implementation of the altitude selector is wrong. So we're slowly bringing it back down to 7,500. Okay, we were talking about these instruments, weren't we? So you've got, this will work quite happily backwards as well as forwards. So you can see it's changed to from. But if you've got the whole compass rose though, you don't need to do it, because look, we can just look across the compass. So we know we're going to it at 30 degrees to the beacon, and from it at 210. Obviously it says from, which relates to this, but we can see the other side, so there's no need. So this is kind of a more modern version of that. So it does the same trick, only we're in GPS mode at the moment, so it makes no sense looking at it in that way. And when you're in GPS mode, being able to rotate the course doesn't mean anything. Especially if you are close to the track, which we are. Let's zoom out a bit. So you can see we're on the second page on the GPS at the moment, down here, of the nav section. There are, what do they call them, page groups, aren't they? This is the GNS 530. So there's the first page group is nav. There's also waypoint. There's a database of waypoints built into it. There's fuel planning. There's nearest airport lists. And I think that's about it. But then within each page group there's many pages. So on the navigation page there's the aircraft oriented version. Let me just turn head tracking off a moment to look at this. Got some time, haven't we? Might as well have a play with it. So you've got this aircraft oriented as the first page of the nav page group. If you rotate the inner knob you can flick through the pages. So you've got the north oriented view there as well. You've got now this is showing terrain, yes. So if we were lower, it shows it relative, it highlights it relative to your aircraft position. So yeah, we're above all of the terrain at the moment, so nothing's lighting up. But this would colour in if we were among the hills. And obviously red would mean that it's at the same altitude as us. So as we continue on down, if we keep an eye on that descent, I think it will carry on descending based on what we saw earlier. It's still coming down, look. I think about 150 knots. Yeah, so this will colour up when you're nearer the ground. You've also got traffic, so you can turn this off on and off in the menus, or you should be able to. Interesting. I was expecting to see a menu there where I could get to that. But there's obviously the status of the GPS system, and I think that's it for the nav page, yeah. So the waypoints, it's basically a searchable database. You can search for the facilities. You can see all the runway layouts, so you can search for runways within a given facility. You can get all the radio frequencies. Yeah, you can do waypoints. That's got a hole built in. Look, that's right. Yeah, it's just very good. It's a non-directional beacon, obviously. VORs, user waypoints. You can actually program user waypoints in as well into the GPS. It's basically a huge database. A lot of this isn't built in, but here we go. You can switch bits and pieces on and off inside the GPS system. But a lot of it hasn't been implemented. Nearest airport list. Nearest intersections. That's if you're doing instrument navigation and flying airways. It's very cool. There's a lot to this. Where did we get to? We were looking at the nav radios. We looked at vertical speed. You've got obviously fuel level, left and right wing. Got manifold pressure for the engine, fuel flow rate for the engine, RPM for the engine, instrument air, EGT, and I'm going to forget what this stands for, exhaust gas temperature. Some of these switches aren't implemented, so they're there to look at, but you can't see them. You've got flat position, obviously. You've got audible. When you are approaching beacons or flying away from them, you can have audible sounds. So you hear what's called the markers. Particularly if you're doing an approach, for example, with an ILS approach, you can have marker beacons that you can hear. So obviously you've also got COM1 there is coming out the speakers, so you can have like COM1 is pushed in at the moment, so we're hearing COM1. What else? So the frequencies you tune in on this side of the GNS 530 are nav1. So to switch between doing the COM radio frequencies and the nav, you press the button in the middle, and it flicks the focus between the two. Then below it you've got the COM and nav radios for nav2. And then down here is the autopilot. Then down below that you've got the ADF, we saw that earlier, and then you've got the transponder, which isn't really used unless you're doing air traffic control, so unless you're on VATSIM, it's a bit of a spare part, to be honest. Oh, up here you've got the magnetic compass. So in accurate aeroplanes, and I don't think the Coronado aeroplanes actually simulate it, whenever you do steep turns, the gyro direction device, let's call it that, can drift because it's driven by gyros. It's not based on directly on the magnetic compass. So that's why there's actually the knob. There's no knob on this one, is there, to adjust it? You would, I expect, because it's an electric one connected to the GPS. So maybe on this model it can correct itself based on that. But yeah, if it wasn't connected to a GPS, you'd expect to see another knob for it somewhere, where you can actually rotate the compass to make it agree with the magnetic compass. Okay, so we are about 50 miles out from Canberra. So Namadgi National Park is coming up. There's a lake to the right of us right now. Yukonbini Dam. Let's have a look out the side, see if we can see it. It'll be down there somewhere, isn't it? Oh, it's worth pointing out as well, we never got to this, did we? The aeroplane has a fuel selector, obviously, so you can switch between the left and the right tanks while you're flying. We went for far too long without changing it earlier. Various distractions, so you can see the fuel levels in each tank. We're bringing the right tank down at the moment. Oh, I didn't cover that, did I? Again, not really simulated in the Coronados very accurately, but you've got oil pressure, amperage being generated by the generators, cylinder head temperature and oil temperature. You don't really need to worry about it too much in the Coronado aeroplanes though. They're dumbed down to a certain extent. It's worth pointing out this panel as well, shows you what altitude mode you're in, and if you get the markers playing up. So remember I said you could switch on the order of, well, I can't think of the word, but you can make the beacons audible, and when you get close you'll get the outer, middle, and is it got an in now? No, it hasn't, but you can get outer and middle lighting up. Trim should be lighting up when the autopilot is trimming, unless that is the failure. Again, there's no book with a lot of these aeroplanes that goes into that much depth. That could be that the trimmer has failed. Without having the book, it's difficult to know. BC is an interesting one. That's back course. So you'll see that as a button over here as well sometimes. Yeah, this hasn't got it, has it? I know the G1000 has back course as a button. I'm just looking for it on the unit. Yeah, I don't think it's got it. Not in this aeroplane anyway. Oh yes, it has. It's on the autopilot. Of course it has. Say if you're flying into... We've got a good example on this route actually. If we zoom out. Yeah. So Canberra only has ILS on runway 35. What if we were coming in runway 17 and we could really do with ILS because it's low visibility? If the airfield supports it, you can tune in the ILS for runway 35 and switch on the back course button and it reverses it, and you can fly in as if the ILS is onto runway 17. But it has to be supported by the airfield. I'm not sure if it tells you in LittleNavMap if it's got support for it. If we go and look at the runways, will it tell us? Yeah, I'm not sure it's indicated. I wonder if Navigraph tells us if it can do back course. So if we go and pull up Navigraph, click on Canberra, open the charts for Canberra, and look at the approach charts for runway. If we pull up the ILS chart, let's see what it says about the ILS. Can it do, has it got anything about back course written on it? No. I'm not sure how it would be marked, to be honest. So if we looked at runway 17, there are nav approaches though, so area navigation. So all you do with area navigation, you follow the waypoints and you take note of the altitudes at the distances, which will lead you in nice and neatly. Yeah. So we're seeing there, once we get a bit closer to Canberra, there was a bit of weather around, wasn't there? But it's not over the airfield though. It's more over towards the coast. It's 20 miles away. Yeah, I'm just reading the live stream comments. Inner markers, I can't remember if I've seen any. Like you say, they're very rare. There are some around, but not many. So did this stop descending? Yes, it did. So figure that one out. It climbed straight up through 11,000 feet. We should be able to open the storm windows as well, I think. Oh no, they haven't implemented that. Oh, that's a shame. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can play with around the aeroplane. We should be able to scoot through and have a nose around. Do the lights work? Yes, they do. Very cool. Obviously the sunshades work. Fresh air, but it doesn't actually work. You can't click on it. Scenery, isn't it? It's a shame the weather was so bad at Essendon because it looked like a really nicely modelled airfield. So we have got 31 miles to run, 10 minutes to go, so I've got just about enough time to go make a coffee, I think. So I'm going to sit this camera outside. Oh, we have company. I'm going to go and grab a coffee and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, back in a moment. Hello, okay, so Canberra is right in front of us, as you can see on the map. So let's come out of autopilot. I'm just putting my coffee off to one side. It'll probably go cold now, but oh well. You can see the big airport out ahead of us, but we're going to go sightseeing. Whoa, what's going on with the head tracking? Oh, thanks for the donation from Josh. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I watched a documentary recently about Canberra, about how it came to be. Basically because the other big cities in Australia fought about becoming the capital, so they built a new city to shut them all up. I'll have to get a book on it because it sounds like quite the story. So let's have a look at the map to find out, get our bearings of where we are in relation to the airport. Turn the map off here. We're just coming across this southern edge of the city. The airport's up on the eastern side. You can see it over there. So if we scoot around over these trees and descend down, is that a solar farm down here? Looks like it. We'll follow the edge of the built-up area around the trees, go and have a look at the lakes, and then approach into the airfield and do an orbit or two of the airfield to have a look at it to see how well they've modelled it. We're just descending over Canberra. Coming down, so 4,500 feet and descending. Now we're looking for fuel. Tanks are coming up towards even, which is good. We're over quite a serious hill here, actually, look. It's a quarry. Starting to see roads and traffic below. So what's on the hill over there? Is it a sculpture or is it just a big radio mast? We've got to fly over and have a look now, haven't we, before we come over to the airport. I've never actually explored Canberra in the simulator, so it should be interesting. So the area we are just passing, if we do this on LittleNavMap, we can zoom in. Get more idea. So Parliament House is just the other side of that hill we're passing. I guess that's just a commercial centre over there. we'll come back to the tower on the hill. There's the circular feature you can see in the trees now, which is Parliament House. They've modelled it really well, haven't they? It's obviously custom 3D assets. Very, very nicely done. Okay, let's go and have a look at this tower. So does it appear on the map as a viewpoint? So it's the Black Mountain Nature Reserve, but there's nothing obvious marked unless we zoom in, I guess. No, it just says Black Mountain. If I keep it off the left wing, because I'm on this side of the aeroplane, we'll get a closer look at it. I think it's just the radio mast, isn't it, for the city? Yeah. Covered in mobile phone antennas. Okay, off towards the airfield. So the building on the end of this, it's the National Museum of Australia apparently. We're going to put us on the outside view. It's down here. So this is Canberra Airport just coming up on the flat area out to the side of the city. We'll do a slow pass around the outside of the airport and have a good look at it. Oh, thanks ever so much for the donation, Adam. So for anybody's wondering where they're doing the donations, there's a website called Ko-fi where you can buy me a coffee. There's a link in the channel notes about it actually. Ko-fi.com/John Beckett. So this is the OrbX version of Canberra. Airport. So we're going to loop around this several times because look at the quality of this. Should we get lower? This is a bit special, isn't it? They really have gone to town on it. I'm surprised there's no aeroplanes here. I was running a traffic injector as it stopped. Okay, let's go and run it again. Obviously this wouldn't happen in the real world because I'd have my license taken away for doing this. Doesn't seem to be much wind around. Just looking at that windsock fluttering away down there. Keep drawing the cars in as we get closer. There's a maritime reconnaissance aircraft there with a huge old radome on top of it. So, logistics depot. That was just the throttle warning. At the undercarriage. Wind out for the crane. Very cool. Right, so let's get the undercarriage down. And loop back round, do a touch and go, and then head off towards our final destination for the evening, which will be Sydney. Obviously we're going to go nosying around Sydney as well when we get there. Keeping an eye on that indicated airspeed as we make this ridiculous turn. But look how long the runway is. Obviously it's for international traffic, we shouldn't be landing here. Under normal circumstances, I very much doubt they'd get many GA planes into Canberra. Textures are very good on the ground, aren't they? So if we take ourselves back out to 500 feet, going in the right sort of direction. That's why 5,000 feet, not 500. Just trim the nose gently. Let's get the autopilot on. And let's line up the heading bug this time before we do anything. I think we're pretty close to the track anyway, yeah, so we can go straight to nav mode actually. He says, famous last words. So we're in GPS. We're now in GPS mode. Get the altitude pre-selector sorted out. So if we do that and then go to this and tell it we want 700 feet a minute up to 5,000 feet, and we should be good to go. So how are we doing on the fuel levels? We're still using the right tank for a little bit longer. And we've got 118 miles to go to get to Sydney. So a bit of a relax. So saying goodbye to Canberra. Didn't actually use the landing lights on our approach, did we? We'll get this lined up the same direction we're going. And off we go on our travels again. So I'll delete that distance measurement. So we're about to go over Lake George. As you can see it there, look, already stretched out across the landscape in front of us. So I'll take the head tracking off for a moment and put ourselves in the corner of the cockpit so we can enjoy the view for a few minutes. Overcast in Sydney, storms predicted. Oh, that's going to be fun when we get there then. It's probably going to be about half an hour until we get there. So we can see on the weather radar, it's not too bad. Well, that's the rain obviously falling. Let's look at cloud cover. Which way was the wind? Does this give wind barbs? We want them at low level, don't we? So, say at 6,000 feet. So wind's coming in this way. It's difficult to see them over the land, isn't it? But the wind is this way, not particularly strong. And the cloud is, or I thought it was that side. Are we too high to see it now? Oh, I had the cloud cover at a high altitude. I'm showing it at 6,000 feet now and it's not showing up with much. What about 2,000 feet? There's a cloud off the coast. There's nothing that side. I don't know how much you could trust this, to be honest. But there's spits and spots of rain around Sydney. We'll know soon enough, won't we? So something else you can do, other than tuning in the METAR, I'll show you a trick. We've got a robot in Discord. So Virtual Flight Online, we have our own Discord server that's got, I don't know, well over 2,000 people in it. And there's a little robot down here somewhere, AVBot, here it is. And we can type in /METAR and you can then put in the ICAO code. So we want that's Canberra Airport, isn't it? We want YSBK, and it will come back with the full METAR report for us to read. It's good now. If I press Control Plus a few times, you can see that a bit more easily. So we got wind, visibility 10 kilometers, dew point 21. It's clear sky. It's looking okay actually. Should we have a look at the real world data for Sydney? If we open the browser and go to windy.com and then put in the ICAO code, so YSBK, which is Sydney Bankstown, and we put in clouds. So that's coming down the... Why are we hearing odd stuff in this thing? Somebody nearby that I'm not spotted. $100 miles to run. 37 minutes. Just trying to tidy up a bit here with all the things we've opened and are running. This FSLTL isn't doing much in the way of air traffic for Australia, is there? I guess we would see them on LittleNavMap if they were in the air as orange aeroplanes, but it really isn't doing any, which is surprising really. So I'm actually going to go switch it off, I think, for the moment. That's fascinating, isn't it? Look at the label there. When you put prop de-ice on, it obviously causes a magnetic field because it'll be running electricity through the propeller, and yeah, it throws the compass out. So, dryer flyer, how do you decide on the locations to fly? Randomly. I guess part of it is I used to organise group flights. When I first started out with Flight Sim, because there weren't many groups around, I started my own. And that's how Virtual Flight Online came to be. So if we go and look at the virtual airline for a moment while we're flying along, this is a good opportunity actually to tell you all about it. So if we go to va.virtualflight.online, you'll see this virtual airline. Anyone can join it, it's free, and that's what we're using the ACARS client here for today. If I just go and log in. So when you're logged in, you can see there's a few people flying. I'm one of them at the moment. It's quite quiet because it's late at night, I guess. Those are the flights that are logged at the moment. You can see, I should be on the list somewhere probably. Oh, that's dispatched flights, not just any old flights. I'm flying a free flight, so I'm not doing a dispatch flight. That's why it's not on the board. So getting back to the question, when I started doing group flights, each week for Discord, I would go in and pick a number of airfields in a row that was kind of 150 miles each apart, usually with a few hills in the way. So we did do the Snowy Mountains one week, so we would have probably flown around these airfields, going point to point around them. So I went looking around the world on LittleNavMap, picking out anywhere, we went all over the world, a different country every week on purpose, because I kind of rail against the people that, and I know it's it's a common thing to want to do, to fly around places but a lot of people do tend to continually fly around only the places that they know or have been, whereas I'm the opposite way. I'd rather go and see the entire world. So I went off around the world organising group flights, different countries every week. And we did that for the best part of 2 years until other people took over doing the group flights. But off the back of that, I then got itchy fingers one weekend and created this virtual airline. And within the airline, although people tend to think of airlines as a place to go and do scheduled flights. So in here you can see there's a map somewhere. Where is it? Route map. And you can see there's actually far more than you can shake a stick at on the map. So if you went and picked somewhere really, I'm going to make this bigger for a moment. If you pick somewhere like, what would be a good example? Was Cairo. So look at all the routes. Yeah, so if you click on each one of these, it will show you the routes that fly out of there to other places. So they are scheduled routes, which are a bit boring because you don't always want to do that all the time. So really making an airline was an excuse to do something entirely different than any other airline on the internet seems to do, which was just tours. Go to explore the world. So we did some basic student pilot tours to begin with, which is just, very simple ones for you to learn ACARS. But then what we did is went all over the world. So you've got an Italy cross-country tour here with legs that are about 100 miles long, where you can just pick a leg, go do it, and then you can tick them off as you do them. And then when you complete the tour, you get a badge on your profile that you completed that particular tour. And we got loads of them. So there's British Isles, Italy, West Coast, USA West Coast. There's Japan, the Alps, Tasmania, the Philippines, Norway, Canada, the Maritimes, New Zealand, France, Germany, the Nile, Iceland, New Zealand again, the South Island that time, Papua New Guinea, Finland, Christmas destinations, Central America, Sweden. So it goes on. And these are all the short leg tours. So they're for private pilots, for GA aeroplanes basically. Then you get the Class D tours, so you're moving up to things like that, tailored for the Islander, the Kodiak, and so on and so forth. So you've got Australia. So just to go and have a look at this Australian one, for example, to show you the kind of shape of the tour. It's going around the coast, doing big legs. Australia, South America, Gulf of Mexico, India, Alaska, Chile, the Himalayas. That's a fantastic tour. It goes basically across the roof of the world along the Himalaya chain, and it really teaches you about operating airplanes in severe conditions. But then you've got Class C, so each leg is over 250 miles, so it's suited to the business jets. So again, going all over the world on bigger legs. And then you've got Class B, so over 500 miles per leg typically. So suiting the 737s and the Airbuses, for example. So you've got like the European tour, which takes you all over Europe, zigzagging all over the place, leg by leg, which takes you into and out of airports you otherwise wouldn't have ever even thought of going to. But you end up seeing a lot of the world. And then finally the Class A tours are the big jets. So, for example, London to San Francisco and back is the entire tour. There's this one, the Vancouver to Hawaii tour. Again, it's Vancouver to Hawaii and back. We've also got historic tours, so we've got retracing Amelia Earhart's flights, and you can do the tours in any aeroplane you like, so it's totally up to you to choose, you know, what aeroplane you're flying on each leg. So we've got tracing obviously Amelia Earhart's journey across the world, or around the world I should say, so you can see it retraces as closely as we can with the airports we've got, the route she took. Got the McRobertson air races from the 1920s. So I think that started in the Midlands of the UK and flew all the way down to Melbourne. But again, it retraces it as closely as we can with airports that now exist. So yeah, the Toulouse-St. Louis rally, Viking Royal Mail. So it's some of the old mail routes across Europe. But yeah, the whole idea though is to take us to places in the world that we wouldn't have thought about going. And it's your own navigation en route, so you might go and pick, these are the old group flights by the way, got loads of them in here. They make no sense to look at on a map. But if you're looking at one of these, you'll pick a leg for example, and then you figure out your navigation to get from A to B. There's no airfields or no runways set out, it's just get from this airport to that airport. So you choose the airplane, you choose your flight plan, use ACARS, and it ticks it off. So then if I go and look at somebody's record, so one of these people that's flying at the moment, say Yaniv for example, if you go and click on him, you can see he's done several tours, so he's got the badges on his and you get a rank. The more hours you fly and record with ACARS, you go up through our rank system. So he's a Class A captain, which is the top level. Well, actually, strictly speaking, that's not the highest level. You can get A1, 2 and 3, which is because we didn't ever anticipate we'd end up with so many Class A captains. But you can see on any of his flights he's done, look, the record for them, he's not using ACARS. So if you're on Xbox for example, you can still do it, but you have to fill in a manual form when you've done your flight. If we go and find somebody who has done some flights, I'm probably a good example, aren't I? But so if we go and look at me, where's my profile page? You'd think I'd know my way around this, wouldn't you? You can see here's some flights I've done. So there's one here that I did in the Vision Jet from between two airfields. You can see this has got very little deviation in it. I flew it straight line. Let's look at a more interesting one. There's a My Air flight that I did. So look, it scored me. I overspeeded below 10,000 feet. I had the landing lights, I would have had them off below 10,000 feet, and it stall would have been on landing. I would have come in a little bit too slow. So you get the full ACARS report of all the data, but you also get the actual route and the path you took. Yeah, so you can actually see in quite some detail what you did. So then if we actually went and visited any of those tours, so that was the TNA, I can't remember what it stands for now. Where in the world was it? I can't remember what TNA stood for. There is some method to the madness, but I'm just trying to remember. Because when you go and look at the tours, if you've been doing any of the tours, the legs tick off as you do them. This one will be ticked off for me. So yeah, I've done all of those legs. And you can see a table here of all the people that have completed the tour, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So yeah, the virtual airline just gives you something to do, basically. That's the real point of it. And alongside that, we've also got Discord, where people can meet up and chat, and they can even share screens while they're flying if they choose to. So if you come and look in Discord, we've got channels for the news. Obviously, there's a news feed, news aggregator that tells you all about the airplanes coming out on Flight Sim. There's a general chit-chat channel, people talking about the simulator and what they've been up to. There's a forum where, you know, if you've got a specific subject you don't want to be lost in the conversation, you can start a subject. People can introduce themselves to the community, and people do. There's a logbook channel where people can write down any notes about flights they've done. There's screenshots, which is obviously chock full of hundreds and thousands of screenshots. It's pretty straightforward. There's the regular events, so there'll be a subject in here for each upcoming event. So there's last Sunday's group flight, so you always get all the notes about, you know, and commonly the flight plans to download, and the chat channels. So earlier this evening there was an event on. There was about 30 people in the events chat channel, all chattering away while they were flying. Support forum, if you're stuck on something with the simulator. Where can transmitter be downloaded from? GitHub is the answer to that. https://github.com/JohnBeckett/virtual flight online transmitter. That's the link they're looking for. So, we've also got some ATC voice channels, so if anybody wants to play around with somebody being an ATC and talking everybody else around, then we can do that. If you're flying on VATSIM but you also want to socialise, you can sit in the VATSIM voice channel, and people will know not to try and make too much conversation with you, but they might dip in and say, how's it going? And there's tons of resources channels, so the various aeroplanes coming out, the various sceneries people have tried out, liveries, flight plans, software, hardware, content creators. I think I'm in there somewhere. Books, movies, you name it. Other groups, because we've got no problem with advertising the existence of other groups. If you want to sell anything or looking for something to buy, there's a buy-sell channel as well. So yeah, it's just a huge community. It's very relaxed. We've got a great bunch of moderators who, you know, try to let conversation freely flow. We're not too strict, unlike some of the groups out there. It really is more of a social club than a virtual airline, to be honest. But anyway, so there we go. I ought to look and see where we've got to, didn't I? We've got 60 miles to run. But yeah, so it's very relaxed. The virtual flight online airline is very relaxed. It's just ideas for places to fly, to be honest, and you get to tick them off on a scorecard as you do them using the ACARS client. There's a huge instruction book online. Well, not huge, but a very straightforward one. You'll see there's always this link to the codex. It's just a free website you can go into. You can get all the beginner's guide on everything. So how to do the group flights that are regularly staged, how to get started with the airline, and it just walks you through everything you'll need to do along the way. How ACARS works, how the rank structure works, so all the different ranks, there are certain types of airplane that the rank structure unlocks for you in terms of if you want to do scheduled flights, for example, or if you want to do it's got Simbrief integration built into the airline, so if you want, you can say, I'm going to do this leg, can I have the flight plan from Simbrief please, and it will go and fetch it for you. How the flights are scored, so that page you saw where I did particularly badly, you can see how that all works. But again, it's just for a bit of fun, really. It's not, you know, no one's ever going to tell anybody off or anything. Group flights are good fun, so they get advertised on the Discord server. You just keep an eye on the events happening inside. So if you haven't seen Discord before, there's an events function, and you can see the upcoming events. So the next one is on Christmas Eve. There's a 1 hour flight at 8 o'clock. But anybody that signs up can make their own events. So if you want to invite people to go flying somewhere, you can make an event up. Any of our members can do that. Yeah, so anyone can join, anyone can make an event. So it's a ready-made, basically, huge community of flight simulator enthusiasts. Okay, and it kind of runs itself in a strange sort of way, so it's not really strictly run by anybody. Should we reduce the range on this? Now we're a bit closer. We'll be able to see Sydney out on in the distance soon. Should we divert slightly and go towards the coast? Although we're going to Bankstown, yeah, should we go towards the coast? So if we went more Wall 18 and then, because Sydney Harbour's up here, isn't it? Can fly along past. So if we turn right to 59 degrees, heading mode, we'll take the airplane out to the coast. So we are going direct to Wall 18. And then if we go and look at our flight plan, we can modify it. So we'll clear out our existing flight plan. Oops, wrong button. Flight plan, menu, delete flight plan, enter, yes. Oh, it's being a so now, isn't it? To slow down a bit. Wall 18, enter. And then we'll go to JIBN. To be honest, we'll hand fly a lot of this. MRBR. Then Halas. And then back over the top of Sydney towards Bankstown. So we'll need to put that in though. YSBK. Going faster than the lookup is happening. Okay, so if we take the flight plan back off, we can see that now stretched out ahead of us, which is great. Yeah, so Dryafly, you're absolutely welcome to come and join Virtual Flight Online. The links are, if you just visit virtualflight.online, all the links to Discord and everything are there. So if we go here, it's got the links to Discord and there's a Facebook group as well. There's the Virtual Airline page, obviously, and Patreon, so quite a few people chuck in the cost of a cup of coffee a month just to help pay the server bills, basically. There's a newsletter as well, so if you go and click on the newsletter, similar to my own newsletter, my own blog, it's the one for Virtual Flight Online. It obviously is purely to do with the events coming up, things like that. We've taken the simulators away now. I'll have to get rid of that post. Edit post. Yeah, these channels were not used, so I need to get rid of that, and then settings, and then delete the post. Okay. Very good. Telling everybody all about it. Works in exactly the same way as my blog, basically. So, do we have any radio beacons along the coast that we could use, maybe? Doesn't look like it, does it? We're on heading mode, look, and we're being pushed by the wind away from the track. So if we go in nav mode, so we're in GPS mode, so we'll go nav mode on the autopilot, and hopefully... See, now that's interesting. What we might have to do is put the airplane on. It's just outside of the range where it can grab it, I think. So we'll put ourselves on an intercept course. And see if it grabs it. So it's in heading and nav. That's the telltale that it hasn't captured it. So it's flying heading until such time as it can lock onto nav, and then heading will go out and it will chase the route on its own. It's just done it, look. So heading's gone out. In other words, it's captured the nav, and it will have done that when that got close enough on the course deviation indicator. So should we start descending? We're at 7,500 feet still. So let's go and push this. Take us down to 3,000 feet. Engage. .800 feet a minute will be fine. Got a few minutes to go, and it's just straightened up. Look onto the track. So if we reduce the range on this so we can see the legs going, 15 miles until we get to the turning point. And it says, notice it says coupled. Well, Kelsey has been buying something from the shop, so that's something else I ought to point out along the way if you've not seen it. So if I go to Ko-fi.com, well, we've got some time. Ko-fi.com, I started this out as a way for people to buy me a coffee, for, you know, in return for doing the stuff I do. But then, while I was working out all the big aeroplanes, I started writing up procedures. And so they're all in here, the various procedures to start up the big aeroplanes or to operate them. So like the 737 one is here, for example. And so you can pay as much as you would like, so typically a couple of pounds, a couple of dollars, whatever. A lot of people get them for nothing. No problem with that whatsoever. So you can see 396 people have bought these. Well, they paid, most of them paid zero. But what you actually get is, if I put in 0 in here and get now, you'll see how it works. So there's the bill, checkout. And that's what I've actually export. So I view the content, I can download it, and I get a PDF. So I've just told it to open the PDF. Is it going to open it? There it goes. So you get a nice document with all of the keyboard shortcuts in it to whiz you around the cockpit quickly, with instructions of where to look, first column at the bottom, in the middle, second column at the bottom, and so on and so forth. All the things to do to get the airplane up and running. Why is the throttle just died? Oh, I've run the tank empty. I think we've got enough fuel. Oh, this is going to be dodgy, isn't it? So what's the fuel flow like? Gallons an hour. 10 gallons an hour. We've got... Oh great, it doesn't actually tell us how much is in the fuel tank, it tells us how full the fuel tank is, which is useless if you don't know off the top of your head how many gallons is in a tank. I mean, we can always cheat and fill it up, but we may be doing an unscheduled stop then for fuel somewhere. Where do we go to get fuel on the way? Can we get there on a quarter of a tank of one wing? That's a bit far, isn't it? Do you know what? I think we're going to double back and go this way. So let's come off of the... Let's go back onto heading mode. We're going to go and get some fuel. Drop down. What altitude are we at so far? Coming down to 4,000. We've got another 1,000 feet to drop yet. Should we come down to 3,000? 2,000, I mean, sorry. Okay, so we're going more or less the right direction. It's down there. Shell Harbour, that's where we're going. We're going to go and grab some fuel and then we'll get back on with our journey. Didn't realise how close we were running it on fuel. So we're just dropping down, 3,500 feet, descending to 2,000. There's any beacons down here? Yeah, there are. Ah, we could have a play with the ADF at last. 239.0. This gives us something to do, doesn't it? So 239.0. Okay, why is that not letting me? That obviously switches the frequencies, but why is it not letting me get into the correct range? How odd. Okay, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to admire the scenery. Because look at This is really cool, isn't it? Okay, it's photogrammetry, but looks the part. This looks worryingly low. 2,000 feet. And is it going to pull us out of the dive? No, it isn't. Look, it's not done it again. So let's go manual anyway. Autopilot off. Just looking at the fuel, that's all the fuel we have in the world. So just down the other end of this lake. Lake Illawarra, is that? So, head tracking on. Let's go and put some lights on. Oh, I turned all the lights off earlier, that's why that's... Yeah, when I was keying things into the GPS, I pressed L without it having the focus, and it obviously turned the lights off. I thought I'd had the switch happen. So let's come back up to 2,500 feet. Need to check the wind. So runway 34 probably, with a bit of a crosswind, but nothing too bad. Runway 34 is longer than the other one, so. Although we could go runway 26, just have to be careful about coming in slowly enough. So we do right turn in to 26. Flaps are first position already. I wonder where the fuel is. Down by the buildings, I guess. So we'll have to, if I can stop fairly quickly, we can turn right straight into the parking area and get our fuel immediately. Straighten the view up. We've got that bit of a crosswind to deal with. Notice that the nose is pointing out towards the right side of the runway, that we're being blown further away. So one way of dealing with these landings is to actually side slip towards the runway direction. So you then bank to traverse left and right, but you keep the nose pointing down the runway, then you don't get the problem with the aeroplane crabbing off at crazy angles. So you keep the aeroplane pointing runway direction and you bank left and right to slide left and right across the runway. See that happening? Okay, now we're looking for fuel. Whoa, what is that doing there? That's another maritime reconnaissance aeroplane, isn't it? But an old one. Oh my word. Okay, where's the fuel? Is he in the way? Or is that it here? That's it here, isn't it? You can see the pumps. I'm hoping it is anyway. So we give ourselves 50% of a fuel tank. Mixture back to rich. Turn the engine back on. Very cool. Okay, we're going to go round. I should have gone up that side really, but we're going to backtrack on this wrong way. The one we came in on. Hey, is that Catalina? Looks like it might be. Consolidated Catalina. It was yeah, naval reconnaissance platform during the Second World War. Yeah, that's a Catalina. You can see the bubble canopies at the back. How cool is that? Okay, so I'm just looking at the live stream chat, so it's a museum. That makes sense. Okay, you're holding quite a lot of left rudder to keep it in a straight line. And we get back on with our route now. So we want to go out the way we came, so right turn. And back towards the track. Of course, now we have lots of fuel, we don't have to worry about wasting it, we can just go full throttle all the way. So let's spin the heading bug round to go the way we're going. Can we get it there before now the airplane starts to roll on its own? The wind's chucking it around a little bit. Okay, autopilot on. Heading mode on. Let it climb at 1,000 feet a minute to 2,000 feet, if it's going to do it. To keep an eye on it. Don't need the landing lights now, or the taxi lights. It's looking a bit cloudier now, isn't it? Seems to be more broken further up the coast over Sydney maybe. But certainly cloudy all around. So 14 miles until the beacon. Well, not the beacon, the waypoint. Leaning the engine out, seeing what we can get away with. About that. Okay, we've leveling. So it's gone through 3. That's still not captured. This is a mystery to me. It really is. It's levelled at 2,000 feet. Or switching this off has obviously gone to altitude hold by the look of it. Yeah, it has. But that's fine. We're a decent altitude. We'll just leave it where it is. Coming back into the GPS track, so you can see it's represented here. There's the direction of the track, and we're off to the right of it and heading towards it, which you can obviously see on the screen over here as well. Cycle the fuel tanks a bit more often, keep them fairly even. Okay, so while we're flying along, we'll just make a pretty camera view and I can read the live stream comments then. Interesting yoke it is, isn't it? It has some functionality built into it as well, so I think this works. Yeah, chronometer. So you can start and stop it, can you? Or not. Oh, so it sort of works. Oh, there you go, it does work. It's got this weird blurring going on today for some reason. Maybe it's just the method they've used to render things inside the displays. I noticed it on the altitude pre-selector as well. Say 3 or 4 miles to go until we get to the track, so let's go to nav mode on the autopilot. We should be hitting it fairly soon. Yep, it's got there. Pretty much on the line now. So you can see the CDI has come in. So then once we change direction here, we'd be looking for 28 degrees magnetic. So let's go and spin the course round so it represents that. So we'll be expecting the aeroplane to turn left any moment. To turn, to do the next leg along the coast. Let's watch it do it. Usually you get a countdown as well on here. So yeah, estimated time en route is to the end of the leg. So if we zoom in on this, you'll see it happen. 20 seconds to go. I think the 10-second countdown happens on the screen as a message. There it goes, arriving at waypoint. Two, one, and left turn now. It's got nav mode on, it's in GPS mode. Why is it not turning left? I think we might have broken. Oh no, it hasn't selected the right leg because we did a direct 2. So let me just sort that out. We'll go to heading mode for the moment. What we need to do is go into flight plan. Put this in here. Put the focus on where we're going to. And we just passed wall 18, haven't we? Yeah, we're going to JIBN. So you go menu and activate leg and enter. Enter. There we go. So it's gone magenta. And if we press nav again, down here, the airplane will start behaving itself again. So obviously it's more than a couple of clicks off on the CDI now. So if we put it onto an intercept course, it will capture. So if you notice down here, you'll see it's got heading and nav again, and I think you'll see coupled will appear as well. Here comes the CDI slowly moving in as we get closer to the path. So that's gone to nav mode now. So it's close enough to track it, but it's carrying on with the intercept, and then it will turn right. I wonder if coupled relates to if this has actually captured the altitude or not. So there we go, it's going to turn right, look. Just as the CDI sweeps in. Oh no, it is to do with that, yeah. So it's to do with it tracking the direction, which is good. Can you switch it to the other side, the co-pilot? What, the yoke? There's a yoke on both sides. Oh, I see what you mean, yes. Can you? That's a really good question. I'm not sure that you can. I'm not sure that you can fly it from the co-pilot side now. What about the default views? Control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No. So none of the default views are the co-pilot position. It's a bit of a shame. So we're just heading up the coast past Kingsford Smith, is it called? The big airport? Yeah. So we'll go past the edge of Kingsford Smith. Now is the time to go and turn on FSLTL, isn't it? So give it a moment. Is it going to do something? It's having a bit of a nightmare, isn't it, today? What's wrong with that then? I'll just look into that. Okay, we're not going to be using FSLTL after all. So JM Flyer is saying this is his old aeroplane, flew one for 20 years. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Oh, I didn't close the cowl flaps after we took off. Whoops. Let's just go and do that. So we're just coming past the harbour south of Kingsford Smith. I'm guessing you wouldn't normally fly across here because we're going to be going right through the approach path. You see it's starting to render Sydney in the distance. So, should we drop down to 500 feet, fairly sharpish then, to see if we can make that happen? Yeah, unfortunately we don't have any sectionals for this part of the world. We've got Navigraph here though, but that doesn't really count for much either. It's not like a proper sectional chart at all, is it? Let's get rid of the weather off the map now. Still far too high. We're right in the middle of the traffic. It's a good job I haven't got FSLTL working, because we would see things whistling past us probably. We were just talking about this flip over yoke. I don't think they've implemented it in the simulator though, so all you can do is make it disappear. You can't flip it over. At least you get to see what the approach into Kingsford Smith would look like from this side. Okay, let's go. Rather than fly this all by autopilot, let's go and disengage and go zooming across the rooftops. In fact, let's go and look at Kingsford Smith. We're not flying with ATC or any rules, so we can do this. So we'll start out here, have a look at the airfield, then go over to the city, and then go and find our final destination for the evening. There's a lot of container ships down here, aren't there? I forgot to run the seafront simulations out on. Otherwise, we'd have had loads of traffic in the harbour. It would have been quite busy, I imagine. I forgot all about it. That's a lot of containers down there. It's a shame the cranes aren't modelled, isn't it? That really would look good. I guess you could laugh and say, okay, yeah, they've overfilled those ones and they've sunk. Let's try this once more. FSLTL injector. Looks like it's woken up this time because we're close enough. Give it a few minutes to do its trick and you should see aeroplanes appearing if it is going to behave itself. Why is it not working? This should be flooding with aeroplanes. There's obviously something odd going on with FSLTL, isn't there? It doesn't want to do it. Okay, off towards the city. That's just the throttle warning for the undercarriage. Yeah, I'm not sure why traffic injector's not working this evening. It was working earlier. It's being a bit odd. Maybe they're working on it. Yes, just reading the live stream comment, FSLTL injects a mixture of aeroplanes. So you'll get helicopters, aeroplanes, GA aeroplanes, you know, like business people. You'll also get the big jets following the correct paths from, it uses Flight Radar 24, I think. That's one of its, or you know, the publicly available data feed, because air traffic is public data. Railway station. That's the Opera House directly ahead. Yeah, I wish I'd had seafront simulations installed, because this harbour would have been absolutely teeming with yachts and various boats and, you know, ferries and all sorts of things. Welcome to Sydney. There's a couple of military boats down there. Loop around the Opera House. The flags waving on the bridge. Try FSLTL one more time. I'll just leave it running in the background and see if it comes to life in a few minutes. Okay, we're heading towards Bankstown, wasn't it? Let's have a look. Yeah, Bankstown Aerodrome, which I have OrbX scenery for, so we are going to see how well modelled it is. So I think it's also known as Sydney Metro Airport. So we're going to get a good look at Bankstown in a minute, then we'll find out from the Malteur, is that how you say your name? We'll find out how accurate it is. We're about 9 miles away at the moment. Just looking at the waypoint. It's our final waypoint for this evening. How are we doing on the fuel levels? About even. Could do with going back to the left tank soon. Okay, why is that not working? His name. It's just sprawl, isn't it? Suburban part of Sydney. So we have a quick look at the map. We're heading over Burwood at the moment. We should actually be going that way. don't fancy that. Those clouds off in the other side of the city. They look a bit horrific, don't they? Like the airfield we can see over here. Looks like it, doesn't it? So which way is the wind at Bankstown? So we'll be going runway 29 then. Has FSLTL done anything yet? There's no orange planes showing up at all, is there? How odd. Let's just try something. So it's obviously not working. Let's see if there's another copy of it hidden away somewhere. Nope. I think I'll give up on FSLTL for the moment. It may be because I didn't start it with the flight, so it's just not behaving. So 29 right for arrivals, okay. So we'll descend down and have a close look at it anyway. We'll do a lap of the airport before we come in. I can see a 146 parked up there now. Or at least I think it is. Runnings Warehouse. Is that right? Was it Bunnings? Something like that. there's a 146. There's that dash down there on the parking area as well. Or is it an ATR? Okay, enough buzzing the airport. Let's go and climb back out and come back in on a proper approach. The only way to have better ATC at the moment is to have humans do it. Just reading the live stream comments there. A great way to do it if you want a friendly on-ramp towards ATC is to go and join My Air. They've got a Discord server. And they're kind of a friendly group of guys that a couple of them nominate themselves as air traffic controllers, and the rest of the group can talk to them as ATC on Discord channels during the flight. It works remarkably well. Okay. To put the lights on as well. We're far too high, by the way, but got such a long runway, it's not really a problem in a GA aeroplane. I'm not sure if they've modelled the interior of the buildings here. They may have done. We'll find out in a moment, won't we? Can I get off at this taxiway? Just. Isn't it funny how the vans congregate around whoever is on the ground? Where are we supposed to park? I haven't looked at the airfield map at all. We're going to go and have a look around in the drone camera in a moment anyway. Let some fresh air in. Okay, so if we go to the drone camera and tip it up the right way, let's speed the drone camera up a bit, and then we can go and have a nosy around the airfield and see what they've done. It's pretty cool, isn't it? So there's a helicopter base here. There's the transport hangars over there, I'm guessing. There's the 146, the static version of it. It's not bad for a static, is it? The fuel farm, or tanker farm. Hangars, lots and lots of hangars. Some sort of logistics depot down that end. More and more hangars. Control tower. It's typical OrbX, isn't it? Where they've kept the detail down to keep the frame rate smooth, which I don't really have a problem with. Anyway, there we go. We've reached journey's end. All the way from Melbourne over to Sydney. A whole evening spent in the simulator. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Airport is accurate to about 2020-ish. Yeah, that's kind of what you expect in the sim, isn't it? It's probably, it was made, I would imagine it was made for X-Plane probably, or FSX, and then ported through and tidied up. It's pretty well done though. So where is the passenger building if you came in here? If that's the parking down that end. Because this is all industrial, isn't it? Ah, there's no, that's for the helicopters. There's hangars over that corner. More hangars over there. There's loads of hangars, aren't there? So is this the passenger building over here? Have I missed it out completely? No, because how would they get transported to the aircraft? This must just be commercial buildings. There's a McDonald's. She's going to have a look at it in a moment. Yeah, this is just commercial buildings. That's a little bit ridiculous that they've built McDonald's to that level of detail. Right, I really am going to leave it there this time. Yeah, I suspected as much just reading the live stream comments there. It's a metro, it's executive airport, isn't it? Where somebody comes up, gets in their private jet and vanishes. And lots of training hangars. And various logistics companies working out of here with transport planes. That's what it looks like anyway. Probably the Sydney helicopter news crews are based here. I wouldn't be surprised. Right, I'm going to leave it there, and I will see you all again soon. So thank you for tagging along if you've been watching for any length of time during the stream, and do go and take a look at Virtual Flight Online at the Virtual Airline. Do go and take a look at Ko-fi as well, because you may find I've got a procedure that's just the thing you were looking for to get you up and running on an aeroplane. I tend to have my procedures that I handwrite do away with anything you don't necessarily need to do. So there's like a nod to authenticity, but typically they are just functional startup guides. So hopefully that'll be of use to people. Anyway, I'll see you all again soon.